Welcome, YouTubers. It's a fascinating program for me today, as we are meeting a lady whose career it's not so dissimilar to mine. This lady's journey is from pharmacist to natural healing, natural energy healer, from mainstream to alternative, and even more so from a traditional practice to something that I would say is more underground. Welcome, Elena.
Thank you, Sunita, for having me and for having such an exciting conversation that I'm really looking forward to sharing with everybody today.
Fantastic. Well, we're excited to hear your insight. So, Elena, let's start from the beginning. Is there something in your childhood that pointed to what you're doing today?
I think I remember being a very small child, probably around 4, walking the streets. I grew up in Kiev, walking the streets of Kiev with my parents. And I remember looking into a pharmacy, and it was an old world pharmacy. Perhaps we don't have many of those nowadays. But I remember this distinct feeling. I felt like there was something magic that was happening, something magical that was happening, because it was all glass and there were lamps and scales and all kinds of glass jars. And I remember thinking, I want to do what they're doing because I was so intrigued. But whatever it is that they were doing, I thought they were literally working with magic potions. So for me, that was kind of a start into this is a path I want to take, even though it took me somewhere else. But that was how it started.
And the first thing, your first career was as a pharmacist.
Yes. And very far from mixing magic potions.
How long into your career was it before you realized that?
10 years. Well, so I worked for 10 years in all kinds of settings, mostly retail setting. And then I went into integrative fellowship. I went and studied functional medicine. And the day that I stepped my foot into functional medicine, I knew that I can no longer go back to what I was doing. And actually, that was a time when I also transitioned into compounding pharmacy. And this is where there was some sort of magic that was happening, because I was custom making medications for people. So I enjoyed that process very much.
Yeah, and you've continued that into your current line as well.
No? Oh, you mean as far as mixing things?
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
but also very different. But yes, mixing and making things is definitely, I recognize it was my creative aspect to who I was. So I never gave up the aspect of being creative in that sense, but I no longer mix medications. I actually tend to take people off of them or help them get off of the medications.
Now, you help people with quantum energy healing, with your healing work, with real deep dive into their spirit, into their soul, into their spiritual essence. And you help them with chronic fatigue, with pain, with lethargy. I mean, so many things, Yes. So first of all, it's incredible that we can do this naturally, that we don't need to take a tablet. And one of the things that I've seen when I was researching your work is that you've written very astutely about the impacts of about self-esteem and mental health. So can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts in this area?
Yes. So I want to kind of go back a little bit, because I did not realize how our emotional well-being and of course our mental well-being has a direct impact on our physical well-being. I had actually, these two were completely disconnected, because going through traditional medical schooling, pharmacy, that was never a topic that was addressed ever. And it wasn't until I started working one-on-one with people, back when I was still in the compounding pharmacy, I decided to have a side business where I was also consulting people and practicing functional medicine, where I was able to order lab tests and look at the lab results and also discuss, sleep, how people are sleeping, why are they having digestive issues. And I began to recognize there was something else that was underlying and kind of brewing the reason or creating this perfect storm for why we're getting sick. And it wasn't until I began to dive into the energy realm, the quantum realm, that I recognized that all along I've been taught that we are, in a way, mechanical beings. That, okay, this is my symptom, here's the pill, here's what you have to do. No one ever talks to you about how emotions are directly linked to creating the chaos in our physical body. So yes, what does it have to do with our self-esteem and self-worth? Well, a lot, because all of the chronic conditions that we, perhaps for some of us, it's much more extreme than others, stem directly from the way that we value who we are. And the one main thing that I recognized is when we have events and situations in our life, perhaps from the moment we were in utero, right? Because as babies and infants, we absorb our mother's energy. We absorb our environment. We're these perfect antennas that are just vibrating information out. We're actually information field itself that is manifested in this dimensional kind of physical being. And we're also receiving information. So we're these transducers of information. So if we have the physical things that are happening to us that are stemming from the emotional imbalances, it is crucial that we look into that. And where does that come from? So it's creating limiting beliefs. All our beliefs that we have, and this is the part that I recognized over the years, are stemming from our upbringing, whether it's inheriting from your school, your mom, your dad, your friends, perhaps religious institutions you go to, sports that you were doing. There's all kinds of imprints that are happening to us. And we are like sponges that are absorbing absolutely all of this information. So ultimately, it will impact the way that we view ourselves, and it will create distortions in the field. So therefore, understanding your self-worth, understanding what is you and what is really not you, is crucial in having a healthy body, healthy mind, and having a flow, a natural flow that we're meant to have, in happiness, of course, in our life.
So I'd imagine, now correct me if I'm wrong, I'd imagine many of the people that you see and you help also will have issues around self-love. So, you know, if they're experiencing some of these challenges in the early part of their life, and that's then manifesting in either conditions that they're experiencing or, you know, mindset, you know, and they experience later on in their life. So what are your recommendations? What's your daily practice? What guidance do you give them?
Well, I would say every case is different. So some people will come in with digestive issues, but I will still test to see what emotions are blocked in them, because I think it's important for people to give very clear tools and clear information. The more clarity you can give to somebody, the easier it is for that person to process their own emotions. So I always say that I'm not here to process for them. I can just guide them to it. I can show them, okay, well, you have a gut dysbiosis, you have food sensitivities, you have adrenal fatigue. Yes, those things we can calm down, so the inflammatory processes will come down. But if you have unresolved anger, unresolved worry, for example, right, it will come back. So ultimately, it's giving the power back to the person that is seeking help, because they have to recognize that they are the ones in charge of their life. So that is a step number one. Another thing is, when a person is physically not feeling well, it is very challenging for them to work on themselves. So again, it depends on each case individually. So normally, if I have somebody with chronic conditions, I like to calm the inflammation so they feel better, so they can think clear. Because if the gut is on fire, the brain is on fire, they're fatigued, the last thing they want to think about is how to help themselves. So we have to stop the chaos on a physical body, on a physical level first, and then dive into the emotions and allow for that to flow through, whether it's through journaling, meditation, breath work, whatever it might be. But self-love begins with first saying, I'm not the victim of my environment. Life is not happening to me. I'm co-creating it. So this is a huge step, and it requires both parties, whether you are a practitioner helping the person or the person seeking the help. So it's always about mutual understanding, respect, honoring each other, and also understanding that ultimately the person seeking for help is the healer, not the other way around.
Now, Elena, listening to you, I would sign up for that any day. Now, we're not living really in a time where, this is not the mainstream journey. This is a certain audience that will seek a practitioner out, such as yourself, such as myself, and understand that this is going to take time. This isn't going to be resolved by taking a month's worth of pills. So tell me, what are your thoughts on that? Where do you think, first of all, do you believe there are negative emotions, negative energies that we genuinely can heal with this process? And if so, how do we educate others to understand this is the route to take?
Wow, so many topics we're touching on. The most important thing I want to say, yes, this is not for everyone, because we've been trained, and this is a big distinction that I make in my practice. We've been trained to, who is going to fix me? What magic potion and magic pill can I take to make all my problems go away? So ultimately, the society that we've created and we're a part of is the victim society, which is, all these things are happening to me. It's his fault. It's her fault. It's the doctor's fault. It's the practitioner's fault. And in fact, I need more pills to fix me. And I'm talking about this because I worked in a diabetes clinic, and I actually was a pharmacist in that clinic. And majority of people that I was seeing were on the average 17 prescription medications a day. And I remember having to call and do follow-ups with most of these patients, and I would say, has anyone talked to you about diet, changing your diet and lifestyle? So a lot of these people were on asthma medications, high blood pressure, cholesterol, and they were eating, their diet was filled with dairy, heavy meats, fried foods, lots of sugar. Of course, a lot of them had diabetes as well, type 2 diabetes. Well, they said they didn't think the diet was related. And in fact, they just accepted the way that they are, that was their norm. So they would rather take the pills and complain than do something about their life. So again, this is the preset of our society where we are. So we have to take it and say, okay, this is where we are. There are people, as I know, I'm sure you know as well, that are seeking to feel their best, that are wanting to invest in their health because they're running companies and they cannot afford to feel sick. They cannot afford to feel low. So they're seeking to, there's a lot of these biohackers now that are seeking to biohack their health, whatever the term they might be using. But yes, there is a percentage and there is a shift happening. And what I'm seeing is there are patients now that are actually so smart and so educated and so intuitive. And they're the ones that are creating the main shift that is happening in our medical community, because they're forcing their practitioners to educate themselves more, to look deeper. So when they cannot find the mainstream medical community that can support them in that way, ultimately what most people end up doing is they end up seeking for practitioners that are practicing the healing arts in different ways. So you asked me about negative emotions. Do I believe there are negative emotions and positive emotions? I would say this. When we assign to something that is negative or positive, we automatically assign something is bad or good. I think ultimately we're made to feel all of those emotions, and it's crucial to acknowledge and honor. If you have fear, allow that fear to come through you. If you're worried about something, let that be your gift. Because I always say to people, yes, we have all kinds of, this is like the kaleidoscope of life. It's a gift that we're given in order to experience love, the greatest love, right? and joy and peace, sometimes we have to go through the journey of getting there to really appreciate that. So the difference is when you're stuck and you become a victim and you bathe and expand on the negative or low, I would say low vibrational emotions. That's a different story versus experiencing it, allowing it to come through you, giving you a lesson that it's here to give you, and moving on. So most of the people that I know actually expand and get stuck in the low vibrational frequencies, such as fear, envy, anger, and they're trapped in it. So therefore, they're repeating the same cycle over and over and over. As far as negative energies, so that's a big question, because I would say it's a huge topic in itself. So there's different energies, of course, that people can unconsciously or consciously direct towards other people. In fact, let's say you're walking into a space or in a room, and you're feeling like something is just not right in that space, right? So that's your antenna. Your physical body is letting you know something is off. So can you perceive that as negative? Perhaps it's a negative, or perhaps it's not in alignment with who you are. And then of course, there's multi-dimensional beings that will create an impact on your field. And what could that be? So I talk often with people. Do you want to go into that topic?
I'm happy to. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah.
So many things. This is a topic I've talked about for quite some time, actually, with a lot of my clients. And here's the thing. So there are people that love to experiment with all kinds of paranormal things, all kinds of exogenous substances. I don't want to name which ones because we're not here to advertise those substances. But I will tell you this. Because I've been looking into the human energy field, and I wanted to understand what is it that happens on an energy level, and I can measure that. That actually can be measured. There's devices that can measure that now. And one of them is actually used in a lot of medical communities. It's an instrument that comes from Russia, and it's approved by their scientific community. It's an incredible device, and I can refer to it later on. But anyway, what happens is, I've noticed that people that tend to experiment with different substances, this is just one example, it creates holes in the field. So not only do you invite, so sometimes I'll have people say to me, well, I did this whole journey over the weekend because I wanted to feel enlightened. And here's the big downfall. When you're seeking for enlightenment through something that is outside of yourself, you're setting yourself up for failure, because that something is outside. So and another thing is enlightenment. Everyone is seeking for enlightenment. It's not a destination, it's a journey. And so what happens in the human field that I see very clearly, because I can go into timelines and read it, there's holes that are created. So not only are you inviting the positive experience that you might be having, but you're actually inviting low vibrational beings that are attaching to you. And I'll briefly touch on low vibrational beings and what that means. So there's beings that cannot, perhaps right before death, they did not cross over into the light. So they're trapped in between dimensions. And this is something that I've already measured over and over and over. So it's not like an anecdotal one-time thing. But this is hundreds of cases by now. And what happens is these beings, in order to cross over into the light, they need light particles. They need photons. Where do they get the photons? Well, another human host. And so they basically become like parasitic entities that will feed off of your light. So how do we create holes in our field besides doing exogenous substances? You actually have, if you're expanding and you're stuck in the negative emotions, as we talked about, fear, anger, jealousy, you're creating holes in your field, and you're inviting these beings to literally attach to you and make you sick because they're eating your light. Okay. Yeah. So a lot of times, again, this is that victim mentality. You know, it's happening to me, I'm sick. And this is exactly what these entities are wanting. They're wanting that kind of low vibrational frequency because it's a perfect match. So you're actually becoming a perfect host for somebody or for this other multidimensional being to attach to you and to make you sick.
So it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, big thoughts there, big concepts, and you know, if we were sitting in a hospital here, and certainly in the UK, they might ask us to actually, you know, go to the door at this stage if we were discussing this, because,
Really?
well, I think it's not of the mainstream, you know, certainly here, but also I wanted to say also, um, also through my own experience, I've also experienced this with people I work with, and another thing that I have seen through that work is that also, I've there've been a few examples where actually the individual hasn't necessarily been so much with the low vibration. They haven't been with the high, but they haven't been too low. But something has triggered the opening up of their energy systems, which has then enabled, you know, this outside energy to then actually enter, you know, be hosted in their body. And then what I've seen there is that actually then it's a way for them to be able to still try and talk to their living. So they're trying to access that energy field to be able to continue to have conversations, you know, with their living. It's fascinating. You know, the subject is, it deserves, you know, us to really just have a conversation about this. Just this, it's so big.
What I love is there's actually a device, it's a medical device now that is able to measure this. And this is perhaps something for people who are listening. It has, I believe, over 14 patents on this device. It's a GDV camera. I don't know if you've looked into it, BioWell. So look up Dr. Korotkov. He did this incredible amount of work. And it's fascinating because you're able to measure your field. You're able to measure how other people will impact you. So you could stand in a room and measure the consciousness of space, how another person is able to influence you. It's all published in all kinds of universities right now. And he has, I believe, published over 400 research papers on this. So this will be an interesting link to also place for people who are listening at this moment. Yes.
So now talking about energies. So two of the words that I know in your system, it's common language, and common language in Ayurveda as well is chakras and energy. So chakras being spinning wheels, spinning energy around the spine. That's, you know, the third energy field from the Ayurvedic system. You know, we work through the mama points, which then connect with the nadis. We activate the nadis, which then enables us to actually then empower the chakras, you can say. So the distinctions are quite similar. And what I love about your language is you refer to, you know, I'm going to use some of the words that I've seen you use. So you've referred to sludgy energy, you've referred to energetic debris. And I really resonated with the language. So can you tell us a little bit more about your thoughts around that and how you help people?
So yes, I actually talk about chakras. I also measure people's chakras because they're directly, and actually that device I told you measures that too. It's directly correlated, as you know, to our emotions and organ systems. So, and of course our beliefs. And it to me, it's a connector between our earth physical body, our mental body, and our spiritual body. So to me, chakras are doorways. I write about it in my book as well. They're doorways, and so it's spinning wheels of light. They're doorways into the deeper layers of who we are. And it's through these doorways that we perceive the environment around us, and we transmute and transmit information, and we receive the information. So if the chakras are out of balance, any type of chakras out of balance, I would say begin to investigate into your own health. And there's so many different ways. I mean, there's many questionnaires you can, I'm sure, fill out online. There's free ones you can begin, or you can just look and see, okay, which organ systems, which belief systems are linked to that particular chakra, and begin your own investigation, because based on where the block is, whether it's on a physical level or an energetic level, if it's on an energy level, it will, if it persists, it will manifest into a physical chronic condition. So I would say this is one of the best tools to use if you don't have a chronic condition, to prevent and feel your very best.
Okay, so that's something, this is something you can test yourself. So for those out there, they can, so we'll put the link in for that and make sure people know where to purchase it. Now, Elena, one of your great gifts, you have many, I know, one of your great gifts is nutrition. I know you've really shared a lot of very deep dive content in your book. And it's also, I think, a core part of your practice when you're working with your clients and your patients. So you've got an interesting take on juice cleansers. So can you talk us through, how do we have a good one?
A juice cleanse?
Yeah.
Well, okay, I'll say this. First of all, I'm not a big proponent of juice cleanses, and I'll tell you why. Because I've seen over and over and over people come into my practice who are extremely sick from being on juice cleanses. Why? I think having fresh juice, where you squeeze fresh juice, whether it's celery, apple, whatever juice you might want to make for yourself, if you have that on an empty stomach once a day, I don't have any issues with it. My biggest issue is people go on juice cleanses for 21 days, 7 days, and those juices are loaded with sugars. Because as soon as people think they're doing fresh juices for themselves, they think this is okay. It actually is counterproductive. And I can tell you, from doing this work for many years, I've had to work on fixing the digestive issues that people have created because they blindly followed whoever the guru is online and told them these are the juices you have to make. I would say this, first of all, there's not one pill, one vitamin, one herb, one juice that works for every single human being on this planet. There is no such thing. And this is, again, the difference between cure and healing. And I have an issue with people using juice cleanses as a cure because, again, there's no such thing. Why? Some people might be sensitive to apples. Some people might be sensitive to bananas, which this is a whole other topic with bananas. It's crucial for you to understand what works for your body, and what works for your body right now might not work for your body tomorrow or the week after, because you might develop food sensitivities, okay? Vegetable sensitivities. There's people that are sensitive to nightshades. They don't even know. Why? Because those sensitivities are not revealed for most people instantaneously. It actually stays in your system for quite some time, and the response is a delayed response, whether it's 24 or 72 hours later, but the chaos and inflammation begins to happen. So therefore, it's not that I'm against juicing, okay? I'm against one cure for all, because there's no such thing. And it has to be a very well-informed, customized, individualized decision for you. So if somebody's telling you they are going on this juice cleanse, actually I had a woman that came to me, she was on a juice cleanse. She had horrific things happening to her face. Her liver was congested. She had absolute candida infestation and fungus in her system. And a few months before that, she was actually fine. The only reason she decided to do that is because she bought a book. I'm not going to disclose which book. And in this book, she joined the community of people who are doing this kind of thing. And actually, in the last months, I've had so many people that are extremely sick from juice cleanses. So I want to put it out there for people. It's not that something is wrong with juicing, but something is seriously wrong if a person or practitioner is telling you that this juice works for everybody.
And it goes back to, doesn't it, that actually for an authentic healing program, it absolutely needs to be individualized. We need to be looking at that person's constitution, at their lifestyle. There's so many different aspects that actually come into it. And one thing I wanted to touch on, because my first career was as a journalist, and you've just said something so interesting in the sense that we have to know the difference between what's the cure model and the healing model. And so many of these things that we see in the world they're lovely, they're creative, they're interesting, there's some nice concepts there, but that's what they are. They are marketing concepts. then it's not necessarily an authentic healing program that's going to get to the root cause of actually what's happening to you and put you back into the world in a way that you're not going to experience these challenges again. So I think it's important that message is known, because it's so easy for us to get drawn into the whole thing that comes with these kinds of projects.
The one thing I want to also tell you, because this has happened so many times with people that I've been working with, and I work with people from all across the world. There's a community, I'm not going to disclose which community it is, but it's crucial to understand. If you're part of a community that tells you when you're starting to have physical symptoms from juicing or whatever diet you might be following, if you're feeling sick and the community is telling you this is normal, I'm not talking about 1 or 2 day die-off process of candida. I'm talking about chronically you're lethargic, you're becoming sick, you're losing a ton of weight, you're not feeling well. I want you to begin to ask yourself, why is it so important for this community? It's sort of like a cult, to put you down, to put down and not validate what is truly happening, because what's happening to you is valid. And that is the part that every person needs to trust and not be engulfed in this cultish following that is telling you that what you're feeling is normal, which it is not normal. It is not normal for people who are not trained in medicine or any kind of healing arts to dictate to you what is okay and what is not okay. And this is the issues that I've been seeing arising chronically right now with a lot of people that I have been working with.
Now, Elena, listening to you, your insight, your journey, this has led you to this extraordinary experience of developing what you describe as the codes of consciousness. So let's talk about that. Tell us, what is this?
Okay. So I've designed several online programs, and I will share how codes of consciousness came to be. So leading up to what happened, I'll give a little preset of events. So I've been measuring the consciousness of everything that makes up our three-dimensional reality that we're part of, because there were so many discrepancies that I was seeing. I was looking into why, first of all, what is happiness and what is success? I had to redefine for myself what success meant. And of course, in our three-dimensional reality, success is mostly defined by monetary things, right? The monetary, like the value of like, okay, or how many followers you have, how much money you make, how many millions whatever, right? And I felt this is not what happiness is. This is not what success is. So I wanted to understand the constructs of everything. So I began with my partner Alejandra, we began to measure the systems, and I was shocked, and at the same time I wasn't, because it began to make sense to me that our three-dimensional reality is hijacked. And how is it hijacked? And it goes back to the victim mentality. So majority of our matrix is built on the construct of victimhood. So it's very easy to manipulate. And therefore, it's very easy to sell to people. Why? Because if you're the victim and you're being manipulated and you're in constant state of fear, right? So anything that shines and looks beautiful, physically beautiful and appealing, will sell to you, right? So it's very easy to distort reality when you're in a lower vibrational frequency. And I said, okay, well, who are the people that are in this reality that are not, that are in their love, that are in their truth, that are in their integrity? I want to know these people and I want to find them. So leading up to this, my initial inspiration, of course, was Dr. Hawkins' work, and that was Power versus Force. He used kinesiology to test the vibrational frequencies. I used something else to measure that. There was a lot of correlation with my findings and his findings. And then, of course, I found something else and something bigger. But he was an important inspiration for me to begin to dive deeper into this work. So I said, okay, what can I do? Because to me, to raise the consciousness and vibration of our entire collective, because we're not separate. So even though we know there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of distortion, it's part of one collective, which is the human, right? So whether you're at a love frequency or the fear, it makes up our reality. But I thought, okay, well, how can I raise the consciousness of humanity? And I know it has to begin with me first. So I have to do the work on myself. And then hopefully inspiring other people who want to do the same thing. So I had Alejandra do something with me, and it was the progression. So you've heard of regression, and he did the progression with me. Progression is where he said, see yourself. So he took me, it's in a sort of a state of hypnosis, but not really, because you're fully conscious and present and you're experiencing. So I saw myself in the year 2035, and I saw what was happening to me, and I saw my life at that point. I also saw a book, cover of my book. Everything was very clear, and I was given very clear instructions, which I thought was for me, of all the things I'm supposed to do to work on myself, to activate certain parts of me that perhaps were disconnected. And that included activating my brain, creating all these powerful activation meditations, activating dormant aspects of the DNA, my luminous body. So I went through this journey first, of course, of detoxifying, cleansing my body, and then reconnecting. And then I sat in the meditation afterwards, after 7 days, because it was given to me as 7 days. I sat with myself, and I heard a voice, very clear voice, say to me that I'm supposed to share this. It wasn't just for me. And I thought, how am I going to share this? Because this is a very strange kind of thing that I've never done before publicly. And initially it was, I was supposed to do it as a live event for my community for free. And I did that. So it was a 7-day activation that I took the people that joined on this journey every single day. Some things were absolutely channeled that was coming through me, and other things I pre-recorded, like guided meditations that I also channeled, but I recorded them. And the results were astounding, because what I did is I took the group, the people that registered for free with me initially, I took the group on day 1, and we went through each day, and then I looked at the consciousness of our group on the first day and the last day. And it was amazing, because the results were exactly what I knew would happen. So we went from the consciousness level of below love all the way into peace, which is so beautiful, because peace is a much higher vibration than love. So to me, it was a very clear indication that this was incredibly powerful, and it needed to be shared with as many people as possible. So therefore it became a 7-day online program that you see at the moment.
So can people sign up now? You're still running it?
Yes. Yeah, it's available at any time.
Okay, that's great. So we'll give those details. Elena, what would you, if you were talking to your 18-year-old self, what would you say?
I would say, trust the path. That's all. I wouldn't change anything, actually. Looking back, I would still do everything that I've done up until this moment. So just trusting the path.
Beautiful. And just final question. Just this is very, personal for you, but when was the last time that you were surprised? There's so much knowledge there, I can imagine that, the insight and the wisdom you connect with immediately. So when was the last time you were surprised?
That's a hard one. I don't know. I can't remember. And that's the truth, because I think nothing ultimately surprises me. I can share with you that I experience beauty every day and grace, but it's not surprising.
Beautiful. Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Thank you for your time today. So we'll give the links that you mentioned, And just if you can let everyone know how they can contact you, A, if they want to join your course, B, if they want to work with you, C, if they want to take, have access to your book,
Yes.
how do they get in touch with you?
Yes. So all the information is available on my website. And the website is wholistic.com. WHOLISTIC. And this particular course that we mentioned is called Ignite Your Codes of Consciousness. And it's also available on my website as books as well. So thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you, Elena.
Thank you.